All right. Welcome. This is something I like to do, live Q&A. And typically what we do is we'll log in, whoever joins, feel free to ask any questions you might have about private practice, solo practice, group practice. The reason why I like to do these live Q&As is because when I was first starting a private practice, I didn't, had a lot of questions, but I didn't know, where to go always to ask questions, or, you'd have to read a lot of articles, watch a lot of videos, but there wasn't as much interaction. And so, unless you paid for consultations. And so I really want to make this information accessible, which is why here we are, live Q&A. And typically we log in and we just kind of go straight there. We start asking questions. But today we're going to do something just a little bit different. As you can see here on my screen, I have an article that I recently released this week. It's called 13 Digital Product Ideas That Generate Referrals for Therapists. And so I wanted to start today just by talking a little bit about this article. I think it's really helpful information. I think it's something that could really help people and benefit your practice, whether you're solo or group. And so this is a free article. I have I guess it's a newsletter, but it's also in the form of a blog. So if you go to Substack and search Matthew Ryan LCSW, you can access this with all the information on it for free. So let's just go through it really quick. This week I really, people are always asking about referrals and how to generate more referrals. And there's lots of ways to do this, right? Whether it be through Google Ads or Psychology Today, word of mouth. There's a lot of talk about those, those ways of getting referrals. But I don't often see people talking about digital products as a referral source. People do talk about digital products as something to sell or as like a side hustle. But I have found that digital products can actually be a really good referral resource or a referral source for your practice. And the reason why I like these digital products is, one, you put in the work one time. So whatever it is that you create that thing, that digital product one time. And then from there, it generates referrals from there on out. And you usually don't have to touch it after that. Generally speaking, digital products, I like to think about them as referral sources that you can actually give to potential clients for free. So in my opinion, a digital product that sits on your website that people can download or access is a great way to give them a sneak peek into what you can offer them, what your practice is about, what value they might glean from working with you, right? And so today I wanted to kind of go through some ideas. Sometimes it's hard to think about what kind of digital products might I create, or, what kind of digital products could even be valuable to a potential client that would make them want to sign up for you and your services. So I wanted to give you some ideas and talk through them a little bit. The other thing to know is that I have just launched a membership community. If you want to go deeper than what we are doing now, you want kind of that one-on-one support without having to pay for individual consultations, then the community will be good for you. It's free for 30 days. There is no commitment. You could cancel anytime. If you do decide to stay, it's $25 a month after that. And in that community, you're going to get lots of feedback from me. So I respond and monitor every single post that comes through, and I spend time thinking about the response and then responding. And there's also a toolbox. So in that toolbox, there's a whole bunch of different digital downloads and resources you can access as part of the membership. And one of those is this article, but with step-by-step instructions on how to actually create these digital products. A link to that is down below in the description. But let's dive in. So I talked a little bit about why I think digital products can be a good referral resource. And here we go. Here is the list. This is in no order. But the first one is database of resources. And what do I mean by a database of resources? Well, people are often looking for different resources, right? So for example, maybe someone's looking for good DBT resources. Maybe they're looking for community resources, referrals to different psychiatrists and things like that. And one thing you'll notice is that databases or directories often can attract a lot of people because they curate or collect resources in one spot. And so as a therapist, you can actually do this as well. Maybe you create a database of coping skills. Maybe you create a database of psychiatrists in your area. But you can actually spend time curating a database of resources that your potential clients might benefit from accessing, and then releasing that for free, right? A tutorial video. And this one I really, really like. As you know, I make a lot of videos. They're all here on YouTube. But you can make a video that will provide value to a potential client. So maybe it's a video about coping skills. Maybe it's an educational video about a type of therapy that you do. But the whole key here when you're making a digital product is that it provides actual practical value to the potential client, right? You don't want it to be something that they can access anywhere just by Googling, but you want to provide something really practical, really tangible, and valuable for a potential client, right? So think about what kind of video could you make, right? And you don't have to be an expert video maker. Everyone has a smartphone, or a lot of people do. That's good enough. So tutorial video is one I really like. Wallpaper for a phone or computer. Everyone has a phone that I think is capable of having backgrounds on them. So maybe you make a digital wallpaper that someone could download, and it maybe has coping skills on it or something like that. A quick start guide, right? So maybe it's a quick start guide to using a coping skill, or a quick start guide to whatever it is that you do really well. And this I would imagine to be like a 1 to 2 page PDF that someone could download, right? And you can see how this would be beneficial, right, for a potential client. You could maybe make an infographic, right? So a simple infographic that illustrates something, or that educates someone on something, or provides them with an easy how to use a skill, something like that. Meditation MP3, right? We all, maybe you don't know this, but your iPhone or your smartphone has an audio recorder, and the quality is actually pretty good. You can maybe make a meditation MP3. A lot of therapists like to go through meditations with people. Maybe it's a recorded meditation MP3 that you give for download. Checklists. People love checklists. So maybe it's a coping skills checklist, or a how-to checklist, something like that. Is similar. Number 8 is a psychoeducational graphic, infographic. So maybe it's an infographic about the type of therapy you do. Maybe it references research in evidence-based practices. You can really be creative here. Number 9 is similar. It's another wallpaper, but I was thinking maybe wallpapers with inspirational quotes, right? Motivational quotes, something like that. If you're a therapist that likes to do that kind of stuff, or positive affirmations, things like that. A cheat sheet, so maybe a coping skills cheat sheet. A quick just list of coping skills, and maybe references to where you can find them or how to do them. Maybe it's a script. Number 11 is a script. How to prepare for an initial consultation. So maybe you draft up a script that would be useful for a client to have, so they might know how to interact with a therapist, or what questions to ask on an initial consultation. Journaling prompts. So maybe you release several journaling prompts via PDF that people can download and use. And then number 13, I have a newsletter. So what you're reading here is actually part of my newsletter. Now, I will say a newsletter often takes a time, and not just one time, but a newsletter is something you invest in over a period of time. It is certainly a worthwhile endeavor, but giving people free access to a newsletter that provides value to them could be another great idea. And now again, the whole intention behind these is that you release them for free. Perhaps it's on your website, or you link to it. And as a result, you give a potential client, or someone you're looking to work with, a population you're looking to work with, a sneak peek of what they could expect if they work with you, right? Think about when you go to Costco. If you've ever been there before, they used to give out, I don't know if they still do, lots of free samples, right? So you get a taste of what it is that you could potentially buy. And I know myself, I'd taste it, and of course I would end up buying it. And in some ways it's like that, right? And I have found from personal experience, I make a lot of videos. That's usually my go-to. I really like that medium. I'll make a video one time, put a lot of work into it, and then over time it generates results just forever, basically. Now, I will say this is not going to be like a golden ticket to a full practice by any means, but I have found it to be a worthwhile endeavor. Right? So I would encourage people, if you want to explore your creativity or you want to work on something that could potentially benefit your practice, this is some great ideas. If you have other ideas, I would love to know. Put them down in the chat or in the comments. But yeah, I think this was a list that I really wanted to share with people, give people some ideas and spark their creativity. And like I said before, if you are interested in going really deep and knowing exactly how to create this, feel free to sign up for the membership. You can do that at MatthewRyanLCSW.com/sign up. The link will be down below in the description. You get a lot more than just this in-depth tutorial here. But it's a real valuable resource for you. But you can go and check that out whenever you have a chance. But yeah, I wanted to talk about that a little bit today. And now we can really open it up for questions. So I'll hang out for a little while. If people aren't asking questions, I'll typically, work on some things. We can maybe even do notes and admin together. You can just listen in. But as questions come in, I'll put them on the screen and answer them. So if you have questions, please feel free to type them in the chat, and then I respond to them one at a time. And it could be questions about what we talked about. It could be questions about anything in regards to private practice. If you've watched any of these other videos, the live Q&As, people ask all sorts of things. So feel free to ask whatever question is on your mind. And oh yeah, there's probably a little lag between the time I say something and the time you hear it. And same thing when you type a chat and the time I receive it, slight lag, couple seconds, something like that. So it's not ignoring you. There's just a bit of a lag here. For those of you who just joined, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'll answer them as they come in. I'll hang out for a little while. I typically hang out till questions die down. And if there are no questions, that's okay too. I'll hang out. We can do some notes together or something like that. But I'll hang out for a bit until I notice questions are coming in and dying down, or they're not coming in at all. All right. Cool. I mean, it looks like people are logged in, listening in, but not many people have questions today. That is totally fine. I'll hang out for another couple minutes, but I don't see any questions coming in. So if people don't have questions, no worries. We don't have to hang out too long today. I do these every so often, but I'll give it another couple minutes. If you just joined, we're now kind of answering questions. If you have questions, you can put them down below or on the side, wherever the chat is on your window. I'll answer them as they come in. But it looks like not many people have questions today. So I'm going to hang out for 5 more minutes. And if questions are not there, then that's no worries. It's great if people don't have questions. Yeah, I'll hang out for 5 more minutes. So the question is getting a little cut off here, but someone's asking, do you offer consultations for starting a group practice? And the answer is yes, I do. I do. I'll do individual consultations if people want, but I've also just launched a membership community where it's free for the first 30 days, and after that, it's $25 a month. You can cancel at any time, no commitment there. There's a link to that community down below. That's for both solo and group practice. It's basically a private community where you can ask questions, and I will respond individually to them. I read every single one. I respond every single one thoughtfully, and I put time into those responses. So it's like having the individual consultation, but without the kind of exorbitant costs. And then in addition to the community aspect, you also get access to all the tools and products that I put out. So for example, we talked about this list today. There's a list on that website and has a how to create all these digital products. And there's other things as well, startup guides, and that's always growing. So that's always an option as well. There's a link to that down below in the description. We got another question. It looks like my question box here is getting cut off, so I'll read it. You get a little taste of it, but I'll read it out here. I would like to start having psychotherapy groups, but I noticed that the insurance reimbursement rates are low through Aetna and Cigna. Do we have to accept insurance for groups through Alma or Headway? So a couple of things to think about here. If you are paneled with insurance companies, you're contracted for certain services, right? So they give you kind of like, and Alma has it on their kind of their website, in your provider portal. If you get contracted independently, you'll get this as part of the process. But basically, it's a list of services that you are contracted to provide and accept insurance. So technically, if you are taking insurance, you are obligated to provide whatever service you've contracted with to a client if they have that insurance. So for example, if someone comes to you and says, I have Cigna, you can't do just individual therapy and take their insurance and then do group therapy and not take their insurance. That's at least my understanding at this time. If you take on a client who has Cigna, then if they receive services from you and you are covered for those services by Cigna contracted, then you kind of have to provide all those services and have them all covered by insurance. So I don't think you can really pick and choose there. Now, I think with Alma, it might be a gray area in the sense that, and you have to really, might want to ask Alma this, ask specifically, but technically, you are paneled under Alma's EIN. And so I don't know if there's a difference between being credentialed independently and credentialed with Alma. I know there's a difference, but I'm not sure the nuances of that difference. Because, for example, if you emailed Alma today and said, hey, I don't want to take Cigna anymore, they can get you off that panel quite quickly, right? And in that case, with Alma, you can kind of pick and choose which insurances you're on, but I'm not sure if that would help, but I think the question really here is, can you pick and choose, to take insurance for individual work or group work? And no, you can't. You have to provide both covered by insurance. It's kind of a long-winded answer, but hopefully that gives you some clarity. And then, it poses some problems, right? If the reimbursement rate is okay for individual, but is not great for groups, you kind of have to think about that and what that means and, how many groups you're running. And so it kind of has you kind of going back to the drawing board perhaps and kind of thinking about what's reasonable, to do. So it looks like we do have a couple questions. I'll hang out a little longer. Like I said, I'm in no rush to head out. But if you have more questions, please go ahead, put them in the chat. If you're just joining, go ahead and put them there. And again, I'll answer questions as they come in until it dies out or until it's been a while. Can you recommend a company or organization in California that does the credentialing process? I prefer to hire a company to get me credentialed for my group practice instead of doing it myself. Great question. So I actually did hire a company as well. Now there are tons and tons of companies out there. And obviously I know some of them are a little bit more scammy than others. I get texts all the time from random phone numbers asking if I want to be credentialed in my group practice. So I want to be cautious. There's tons of people out there trying to sell this service. I did use one. They're called Greenpoint Med. I found them through kind of a word of mouth referral. My experience with them was good. They were responsive. I was able to get credentialed. They answered all my questions. One thing I really appreciated about their work with me was that before making any commitment, I spent like 25, 30 minutes with them asking tons of questions. I'm sure they were frustrated by that, but I really wanted to know what the specifics and all that. And they really helped me out there. So I appreciated that. And then they did get me paneled with Aetna and Cigna. And I have a group practice, so that's kind of why that happened. Now, one thing that is separate from Alma, so I'm credentialed completely aside from that, right? And I think that's also what you're asking. And I think a company is a great way to do it. It is costly, so it's not a cheap endeavor. It's certainly costly. However, you have to kind of calculate, is the cost of doing that going to be worth it considering the yield that you'll get from being credentialed independently, right? And I think most people want to do it so that they can do what's called incident to billing, so that they can have provisionally licensed clinicians taking insurance. Now, a couple of things that they will tell you, or anyone you'll find out at some point, is that not every insurance company is going to panel you as a group practice. So just because you get paneled and you have a group practice, doesn't mean that your group practice will be paneled. So there's like group credentialing and there's individual credentialing. And for example, United Healthcare, which I'm not credentialed with, but I was going to be, I think it's United Healthcare. They make you have 5 fully licensed clinicians. And then if you have 5 fully licensed clinicians credentialed independently, then they'll give you a group contract. right? So you want to ask these questions ahead of time, like what does a group contract mean? I used to think that if I had a group contract, then anyone who worked with me could take that insurance. That's not true, right? So you can have a group contract with United Healthcare. You still can't have an LMSW taking insurance. This is at least how it works in New York. I'm pretty sure it's probably similar in California. But when you call the company, then yeah, you would want to ask these questions. I think what you would ask, what's the difference between a group contract and an individual contract? How do I get a group contract? And is it worth it to have a group contract? So those are some things I didn't know, and then I eventually found out through the credentialing process. But that should be a good place to start. I'll leave a link to Greenpoint Med down below. Again, there are a lot of companies out there. Greenpoint Med was good. They got the job done. They did quality work. But again, there are a lot of places out there. Great question, by the way. So the question here is there a way / opportunity to negotiate your rates when getting directly credentialed with an insurance company? Yes, that is actually part of the process. And you'll find that different insurance companies have different reputations, right? So some are pretty fixed. But one of the processes you'll go through is a negotiation process. Now, if you hire a company, they'll do it for you on your behalf. And that works well because the company is pretty familiar, like the credentialing company is familiar with how it works. And you could actually ask them in the beginning, excuse me, what's it like to negotiate rates with the insurance companies? And they'll tell you real quick, like this company is, good to work with, or this company is not. Now, the thing to know is that you're not going to be negotiating like rates that are super high. They're usually all fairly similar. If you're on Alma and Headway, you'll notice that those rates are pretty high. And it's contextual to where you live where you're licensed as well, right? So those are things that you have to consider. But yes, you can negotiate. And yes, it is an important part of the process. And you want to be, one word of advice is if you do get to that point and you're doing it yourself, don't take the initial contract at face value. You do want to push back a little bit. Oftentimes, if you push back, then you will see something, or you'll find out no, this company's not going to budge. But yes, short answer, yes, you can negotiate. Long answer, learn a little bit. I'm happy to talk more about that as well. Those are great questions that I totally will answer, in a future video or even in the membership community. That's something I would go into detail about. But yeah, negotiate. Let's see. How to find a DBT consultation group? Also, thank you for all your content. It's been so supportive for me as I start private practice. Fantastic. I'm really glad you appreciate the content. The whole point is to make this accessible for people, not to gatekeep any information. And your question about how to find a DBT consultation group, I'm assuming you mean for clinicians. If that's the case, a couple places you can potentially look. If you're a member on Alma, they have the community forum. I'm pretty sure you could probably just put a general blast out asking for DBT consultation groups and you'll find them that way. Or if you're on Facebook, it's actually a pretty good resource for people. So there are a couple groups. There's one called TIP, Therapists in Private Practice. You'll see a bunch of other, if you type in private practice therapist in Facebook and you search the groups category, you'll see a lot of groups dedicated to private practice clinicians that have a lot of members. And then if you ask questions there, I often find, you get a lot of feedback, right? Some of it you take, some of it you don't. But I'm sure in those communities, people would absolutely be able to point you to a DBT consultation group. You're welcome. So now that some questions are rolling in, I'm happy to hang out for a little bit. feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and I'll continue to answer. Also, don't mind me. I'm just going to be testing out the chat function here to make sure it works. So you'll see a question pop up, but I've already answered it. So please bear with me. Perfect. Look at that. All right. So you can see I'm repositioning. Now our chat is now up and running better. All right, cool. All right. Looks like we might have answered most of the questions. I'll hang out till, I don't know, a couple more minutes. I'll give it a few more minutes. How often do you do these live Q&As? You're new to the community. Fantastic. I'm glad you're able to find the resources. So I do these every so often. If you look back, I've done about 10 so far. This is the 11th one. I was trying to be pretty consistent, but I do my best to be as consistent as possible. So typically I'm releasing like a video every week. And then these Q&As, I would say probably a couple times a month, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little bit more. Sometimes it's hard to find the time to make these kind of like live Q&As. So I do them quite often. But like I said before, I am trying to kind of put some effort into that community where it doesn't require like a video all the time. So if you're looking for that kind of support, the membership community would be something to consider. But I feel like, no pressure. I feel like I'm talking about that a lot just because I'm excited about it. I just launched it. But yeah, I do these Q&As free, totally on YouTube often enough. Can you please talk about how to deal with impostor? Excuse me, I can't even talk right now. Can you please talk about how to deal with imposter syndrome as a new, fully licensed therapist in private practice? Sure, I can talk a little bit about this. I think this is something a lot of people deal with, whether you've been in practice a while or you've been in practice for one day. People deal with this a lot. I think just one piece of advice that I'll give is that, as a therapist, you are in the helping profession, right? You are a provider in many ways, whatever the therapy is that you're providing or the service that you are providing. And often with that comes a feeling of Well, one, it comes a lot of responsibility, which is true, right? We have a lot of responsibility to care for our clients well. We have a responsibility to follow our ethics and all these things, right? So I want to acknowledge and validate that there's a legitimate pressure and responsibility that we carry. At the same time, I think one thing that therapists often struggle with is this idea they have to know everything. And they have to be a quote unquote expert, and the truth is, that's not the case. That's not the case on your first day, and that's not the case on your very last day of being a therapist. So I think in many ways, it's about also becoming comfortable with the idea that you will never know everything. And at the same time, you can still be a great clinician. Right? It could be your first day as a fully licensed therapist. You have a lot to learn and a lot to go through, and you can be a great clinician. I think imposter syndrome often comes from feeling like you have to be the expert. You have to know everything. And the truth is you don't. You don't. And you can still be a great clinician. So I hope that helps a little bit. I know we can talk about that a lot. But as a new clinician, I hope that helps you out. I don't know if you can answer this marketing question, but how can therapists get into news publications or even spots on the local news and media? I noticed that other therapists are getting features. How can we initiate this? And then you corrected your spelling, apparently. News, I didn't even notice, so no problem. But yes, I actually do know. You're going to see a lot of people kind of with their little, the logos on the bottom of their website, whatever it is, BBC, all these different resources. It can be kind of intimidating, especially if you don't have that. One major way that people do that is through a platform. It's not a platform, it's a website. It's called HARO, HARO. It stands for Help a Reporter Out. When you sign up for that, it's totally free. They will send you 3 emails a day, huge emails, like a huge list, with all of these opportunities to be featured in articles written for various publications, website blogs, big news outlets, small news outlets. And it does take time to comb through. There's a lot, but 3 times a day, there's reporters looking to talk to professionals, and oftentimes they're looking to talk to therapists and mental health providers. So if you want to be featured, and this is a great way to build what's called SEO, search engine optimization, if you're familiar with that. People talk about this all the time, getting backlinks, if your website can be linked on a news outlet, or then of course, it's good for you. But Help a Reporter Out. Just Google that. You'll come to their website, HARO. And this is how a lot of therapists get featured. They go on to help a reporter out, and then you email the person, hey, I have background in this, and then you can go back and forth and hopefully get featured. I'm not sure if you knew about that already, but that's a big resource, and I think no one's going to tell you that they got featured because of Help a Reporter Out, but that's oftentimes what happens. Your videos and live Q&As have been helpful. I've learned a lot so far. Thank you. You are totally welcome. I'm glad it's been helpful for you. Yeah, so so I'm reading the chat here. It sounds like you are familiar with HARO, and you've responded to a couple. I think, think about how many therapists are responding to that. I mean, you don't really know, but I would imagine a lot are responding. I think a lot of it has to do with persistence, and a lot of it has to do with like repetition and doing it over and over again. Getting featured is not an easy endeavor. I do think it's fairly difficult. Tips about getting on the local news. A couple of things that you might want to try. Some back-end approaches, perhaps. If you know the news outlet that you're looking at, you might want to go on LinkedIn and see if you can find employees that work for that news outlet, right? And you can see who is the, who's who on LinkedIn and what they do. And you could perhaps message them and kind of propose your idea or whatever it may be. But I do find that people, LinkedIn is like this, like no one talks about LinkedIn that much. But LinkedIn is actually a good way that you can access other professionals. So my thought would be if you can hop on LinkedIn, type in whatever I don't know, in Pix 11 News, that's what they have in New York, or whatever it may be, and kind of see what employees work there. And then you can message the employee. That's a way to do it. If you go on the news website, they often have like the, press kind of emails and things. I'm not sure how effective that would be. But I think LinkedIn, might be a good way to do it. And I think when it comes to the news, you have to imagine the news is going to be looking for something different, like something unique and different. So you might want to have a proposal. It's obviously they're not just going to advertise you, but they want a story, right? So think about that too. If you're doing Haro, they want like a professional opinion, but if you're on a news outlet, they want a story, right? I know in New York, on one of the news outlets, they have like this segment about like people in the community doing good, right? So maybe there's something like that, and you have a compelling kind of story you want to tell, or that would catch a news person's interest, right? That kind of thing. So those are some thoughts I have that might be some helpful back-end stuff. But I think at the end of the day, getting on an outlet is difficult. It is going to require some persistence. I will even tell you this, with like private practice consultation. Of course, when I do it, like I want to, of course, pair with different companies or whatever to kind of like talk to people. And I use I use Simple Practice a lot. It's my kind of EHR platform. And I can remember like I was doing some simple. That sounds weird. Simple practice tutorials, and I was like wondering if I could work with Simple Practice, and like. So I emailed or whatever, and they didn't respond, and a year later, after consistently putting out videos every week, and I wasn't doing it to work with Simple, like that was not in the forefront of my mind all the time. But after a year, they reached out to me. They said, hey, we've seen your video. I knew they read the email a while back, but of course I didn't have any videos out, just like one or two. But now after a year, I was able to partner with them and work with them and publish some videos on Simple Practice's channel. And I say that all just to let you know, just be consistent, be persistent. And if you are looking to like create content or, get on news outlets and things like that, you have to kind of think about what it is you're bringing to the table. Right? So hopefully that gives you some inspiration, some helpful motivation, and normalizes that is not easy. Great questions. I'm really glad you guys are talking about this stuff. People don't talk about this enough, right? They will just tell you that they've been on the news or whatever. But there's a lot of difficulty that people don't talk about. Yes, there's a lot of gatekeeping, right, in our field. There's a lot of people, have some solutions and answers to things, and make it hard to access that. I will say I do find I guess when it comes to this idea of gatekeeping, it's helpful to kind of talk about a little bit. Right. On one hand, there's a lot of information that I think should be accessible, and and that's why I make these videos. I put out a lot of information, make tons of videos. It's all free. I want everyone to be able to access it. And then at the same time, there are certain things that do require consultations, that like a video or something can't convey. There is something about the one-on-one work. And hopefully it comes from a place of honesty, right? And a place of, a place of really wanting to help someone grow. But I think, in many ways, the purpose of this channel, and even the community that I'm talking about, is to make things as accessible as possible. So right on with that. but we do have some questions rolling in, so I'll hang out for a little longer. I'm happy to stick around and answer questions. So if you have more, let me know. Once we get to like 5 minutes of silence, then that's when I will call it. If you're just joining, welcome. I know like 12:15 on a Friday might not be the best time. It's opening in my schedule, so I at least wanted to do it. I might try to experiment with like, an evening or something like that. I understand that people have different schedules. But if you're just joining, we're just answering questions, going back and forth about some things. This whole recording, this live Q&A will be public on my YouTube channel. And in the very beginning of it, I talked about the digital products and, shared all about that kind of stuff. So if you're watching now, you can watch this later too, if you want to watch the beginning. Good question. Do you practice in New York? Yes, I am licensed in the state of New York. I am also licensed in the state of New Jersey as well. And also, I realize I take a lot of sips of my drinks over here. If that's distracting, I apologize. I just get really thirsty talking about this stuff. Not that this stuff makes me thirsty, but talking a lot makes me thirsty. Do you see clients in person and virtual? So we currently are virtual and all virtual private practice. Our one-on-one consultation was very helpful. I did get an overall increase in referral since putting your recommendations in place, and it's still early. Wow, that's fantastic. Really excited to hear that. Really excited for you. May the referrals keep coming in, and that is super awesome. That is super awesome. I'm contemplating when it will be safe to go back in person to see clients, but hesitant to do so even though I have 2 office locations currently. This is a good, obviously a worthwhile contemplation. And I guess it also kind of depends on, what safe is for you and for others. I know safe, everyone has a different thought about that, what that means. And so I understand, safe for you might not be safe for me and vice versa. So I think it's important to think about that. I have a couple thoughts about this, not the safety aspect, but the in-person aspect of things. I have found that there are clients who are interested in going in person. And at times it is a deal breaker for people. They want in person and not virtual. However, that being said, and this is just my own anecdotal experience, I don't have research on this. Many of my clients are caseload, even the clients that don't stick with us but do a consultation, I would say like 95% or higher want virtual. For me, it's hard to imagine a full caseload of clients after the pandemic wanting to be in person. But again, I don't know because I don't offer it. But when I do talk to clients for consultations, they'll ask sometimes, and it's very rare that it's a deal breaker, but it's something to consider as well, is like the interest level of people wanting to be in person. Is it worth it to hold an office space, which of course can be quite costly? And thanks for sharing that. A lot of people, are probably thinking about the same thing. If you're just joining, welcome. We've been kind of talking about all sorts of things: private practice, group practice, solo practice. If you're just joining, feel free to leave your questions down below. I'll answer them as they come in. Ask me any questions that you might have. I agree. A handful of your clients would like to return in person. Approximately 1/3 maximum would come back in person, face to face. Yeah, I mean, in many ways, the whole dynamic changes. Virtual. One thing I am thankful for that we are at least able to do virtual work, and it can be effective. At the same time, of course, there's that element of in-person care that cannot be mimicked virtually perfectly. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there are some clients who really want to go back, clients who would really benefit from that. And I'm really thankful that you are a therapist who's able to provide that for clients, having office spaces and things. But yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's really helpful for us to talk about these things and, kind of know what other therapists are thinking about. Did you previously see clients in your private practice prior to the pandemic and shutdown lockdown? So in my personal private practice, I did not see clients in person. I've always been virtual. But prior, I was working at another place where I was in person all the way up until the pandemic. So I am very familiar. I was running groups in person. I was seeing individuals in person. Everything I had done before the pandemic was in person. Right. And so I think when I kind of decided to go all virtual, it was several factors played into that, right? Whether it be the safety aspect, the kind of like the clientele, what their kind of the general sense of what people want in person and virtual. And then obviously we have to consider cost and things like that in New York and, wherever you are. So all those factors combined, at this particular time, all virtual works best for us. But of course, that's subject to change as we, learn more and grow and, nothing is the same always. So, yeah, just some thoughts on that. Also, just a random comment. I'm so thankful my computer didn't light on fire today. Last time I tried to do a Q&A, I could barely do it because my computer was so loud. It could barely handle the live Q&A. But thankfully it's working. It's holding up today really well, actually. Yeah, just felt like I'd share that. So I do see some new people kind of trickling in. I'm going to hang out till about 1:15. That'll put us at a full hour. If you have questions, put them down in the chat. I am going to answer questions straight through 1:15. We'll wrap up then. That'll give us an hour. But yeah, we will answer questions until then. So put them in the chat. I'll answer them as they come in. Nice work you're doing here, providing information to the community at large. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's one of my goals, is to provide information, to make the information accessible to people, and especially to provide something like this where you can kind of interact a little bit. It's not perfect, but I found in my kind of journey of private practice, I just really wanted to talk to someone sometimes, right? And this is like the most accessible way to do that. Where I can, kind of talk with you guys, answer questions. We can kind of go back and forth. That's something I really wanted. I could watch a ton of YouTube videos. I could read a ton of articles and learn a lot. But there's something about being able to talk to someone, and like ask a question that cannot be met by a YouTube video. And then for those, if you just joined, we spent the first like 5-10 minutes talking about digital products for therapists that generate referrals. You can watch that later. So I'm going to put this Q&A on the channel later. You can watch it and access it then. I looked at your website, couldn't find a link for one-on-one coaching. Should I email you regarding the rate and possibly scheduling a coaching session? Yeah, my email's on there. Feel free to send me an email. Absolutely, you can just send me an email. We can talk about details, and that's for anyone who's looking to do individual consultation. In addition to these or whatever it may be, absolutely, you can send me an email. Email is right on my website, MatthewRyanLCSW.com. And actually, it's just MatthewRyanLCSW@gmail.com. That's the email. All right, we got about 2 more minutes to get us to the hour, and then we'll wrap it up. But yeah, in those 2 minutes, if you got questions, I'll answer them. If not, don't feel pressure. We'll do these again. You can always email me, things like that. So it's not the last one we'll do. Right, so we're heading up on 150. Oh, here we go. Let's see, one question. Do you have an Instagram account? Yes, I do have an Instagram account. You'll notice like right there. Yeah, right there. I have social media handles. You can't click those, but that indicates that I do have it. In the link in the description, you'll see my Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, all those kinds of things. I am most active here on YouTube. Like that is where I put all of my stuff. Most of my stuff will get repurposed for the other, things like Instagram or whatever. So I'm active there, but mostly active right here on YouTube. Great question. Awesome. Thank you so much. Cool. So we got to 1:15. We went a full hour today. And just one more time, for those of you who are interested, I do have a membership community. If you're interested in going much deeper than we do here, think about joining that. I know I've been talking about it a lot. Again, no pressure. You don't have to, but I at least want to make it known to people. The first month is totally free. You can use the code beta user. You can cancel at any time. After that, if you do decide to stay, it's $25. And what you'll get is access to a private community that I moderate. I read every single question that comes through, and I respond to every single one in thoughtful detail. And additionally, I also have curated a toolbox that is continuing to grow. Inside that toolbox, you'll find checklists and all sorts of things that you can download and look at. So my intention there is to provide like individual consultation services without the cost. Again, want to make these things as accessible as possible. So if you're interested in that, again, first month is free. The link is down below in the description. But it's been awesome hanging out with you guys, answering questions, and hopefully you found this helpful and valuable. You guys know where to find me. You can email me, YouTube. Other than that, though, have an awesome weekend, and I will see you soon.